It's December 31st, and you know what that means. New Year's Eve, yeah, that too, but it's also Worst YouTubers Day. I trademarked that, by the way. I'll spare you a long-winded intro. For anyone here who may have never seen my previous Worst YouTubers videos, I'll establish a few things. One, this list goes in ascending order instead of descending order, 1 to 10 instead of 10 to 1 like most list videos. Why do I do that? I don't know, just to be different, I suppose. And I don't really concern myself over the order I place these YouTubers in, though I usually do reserve the absolute worst of the worst for the last few spots. And finally, it's sad that I have to make this clear, but these are the worst YouTubers of 2025 in my opinion. If a YouTuber or YouTubers you really don't like didn't make the cut for this list and you want to complain, I don't fucking care, and that's just going to fall on deaf ears. How about you make your own list video that you can link to me and then I can pick it apart myself. Anyway, for those who have seen these videos before, you know by this point I don't like picking the most obvious people. There are a lot of absolutely abhorrent, vile people on this website that aren't talked about enough, and there are surely quite a few people on this list who meet that criteria. With that said, buckle in, these are the 10 worst YouTubers of 2025, in my opinion. Carl Jobst is an online figure who has been well known within the speedrunning community for a very long time at this point. For these last few years, he's been best known for his crusade against Billy Mitchell, a disgraced professional gamer, whose claim to fame was getting the world record in the Donkey Kong arcade game back in 1982. Billy Mitchell's reputation came crashing down when Twin Galaxies, a video game database that also provides the Guinness Book of World Records with video game records, had discovered that Billy used emulation software to falsify his score and hadn't used an authentic Donkey Kong arcade machine. Billy Mitchell is extremely litigious when it comes to people discussing him being a cheater, so please don't send him this video. Not only did Billy Mitchell sue Twin Galaxies for discovering this discrepancy, and they unfortunately folded back in early 2024, he has also sued multiple content creators for talking about it, most prominently Carl Jobst. Or so we thought. Throughout the duration of this court battle, Carl framed it as Billy going after him for calling him out for cheating. What Carl didn't mention is this lawsuit actually pertained to claims that did not relate to Billy Mitchell's cheating. This lawsuit actually centered around a pretty gross insinuation Carl had made in one of his many Billy Mitchell call-out videos. The insinuation in question was Carl bringing up Apollo Legend, another popular figure within the speedrunning community, who unfortunately took his own life back in 2020. Apollo was another content creator who drew the ire of Billy for daring to call him out. He was sued and ultimately settled, and Carl's framing is that he had to pay a large sum of money and went into debt and had to find extra work. And with ongoing health issues he was already struggling with on top of that, this was very likely the straw to break the camel's back. Except it isn't actually known whether or not Apollo actually had to pay Billy a quote-unquote large sum of money and went into debt. And in Apollo's goodbye video right before he took his own life, Billy was never mentioned as a factor into his decision, nor was that even hinted at. Obviously, you can't read a person's mind, much less read the mind of someone who's been dead for 5 years now. So maybe Apollo's loss to Billy factored into why he did what he did, but unless Carl had some inside information proving that, which he most certainly did not, saying that was a factor into him taking his own life is nothing more than baseless speculation. So whether you like Billy or not, the little I know of him, he seems like a massive fuckface. Unfortunately, he had a legitimate case here. Saying you had a hand in someone taking their own life without any substantial information to prove that is classic defamation. The court sided with Billy, and ultimately Carl had to pay Billy over $300,000. Understandably, Carl's fan base was pissed, not because he lost, but because they felt duped. His audience raised over $200,000 in legal fees, thinking their money was going to a trusted content creator engaging in this valiant effort to shut down and humiliate a lawsuit-happy piece of shit who will take anybody who dares criticize him to court. Except, oh wait, Carl actually made a pretty damning allegation with zero evidence to back it up, and Billy Mitchell had every right to be pissed. Carl Jobst first entered my radar during the whole completionist controversy, where, you know, the completionist family's charity raised funds funds that went towards dementia research, but it was actually found out a lot of these funds donated to the charity was withheld. Gerard tugged on his audience's heartstrings, making them think they were donating to a very good cause, even though by his own admission he knew that a lot of the money the charity received was withheld. Minus the tugging on his audience's heartstrings part, though maybe you could argue that also applies here. How is the principle really any different? I know the severity of the actual situation is different, obviously. One is charity fraud committed under the pretext of helping advance dementia research, and the other is a speedrunning YouTuber who got sued by a guy who falsified a Donkey Kong high score over 40 years ago. But still, you got your audience to think they were donating to a cause they believed in, which in this case is integrity within the video game community, and they saw you as a trusted figure to uphold that integrity, but instead they were misled. And that's where the hypocrisy factors in. You're all about upholding integrity and calling out falsehoods when you see it, but oh, you're just another YouTuber that likes to call out other people's disingenuous behavior when you yourself engage in disingenuous behavior. How depressingly par for the course, but you did accomplish one thing, and that is handing Billy Mitchell probably his first legitimate win in his life. You probably have never heard of this guy, and that is because he was pretty obscure at the time of his controversy, or crime, I should say, rather. Neoorientalist is an American YouTuber whose entire catalog is a series of videos of him visiting Afghanistan. I guess this guy did travel vlogs that specialized in learning more about the culture and attitudes of foreign countries and lands and the people there. Honestly, I don't give enough of a shit to watch this guy's videos, and thankfully, I don't have to do that here. All I have to do is talk about the shitty thing he did to justify putting him on this list. I'm going to assume his next series of videos would have been him visiting the North Sentinel Island off the coast of India, which houses the Sentinelese tribe, a tribe that is indigenous to the island and has been there for thousands of years. They are known as the most isolated tribe in the world. Very little is known about their culture, their language, or even how many of them there are. They are completely untouched and disconnected from modern society, and you know what? In a way, maybe they're lucky. But unfortunately, every once in a while, even though it is illegal to visit this island without a permit from the Indian government, some fucking morons trespass the island anyway. For example, in 2018, a missionary named John Allen Chow visited this island on more than one occasion with the hope of converting its inhabitants to Christianity. As you could imagine, the tribe wasn't very receptive. On one of these visits, John had his Bible pierced by an arrow that was shot at it, which I would imagine was the tribe conveying to him, "We don't give a shit about your message or whatever you're trying to sell us, get the fuck off our territory now." But the idiot didn't heed the warning, and on his final visit he was murdered by the tribe. You would think that would be a sufficient enough cautionary tale to leave the people on this island the fuck alone, but nope. This doofus figured it would be good content to go on this island without any permission, and I'm assuming he was hoping to contact this tribe, but luckily for him, none of them saw him. So he just decided to collect some samples from the island, I assume also shoot some footage, and he even left a coconut and a fucking Diet Coke as an offering to this tribe. He left, and on his way back to mainland, he was spotted by a fisherman, and then he was reported to the authorities. He was then arrested, and most sources I've read said he faces up to 5 years in prison. This happened back in March, and I can't find anything that says if he's been sentenced yet. But can we just leave these people the fuck alone? They're not going to listen to your religious nonsense. They're not going to happily participate in your vlog that you're hoping is the next viral sensation. They don't exist for anyone's entertainment, period. They are people going about their way of life. You are not only putting yourself in immense danger by disturbing these people, but you're also putting them in even more catastrophic danger. Since this is a tribe completely disconnected from the outside world and modern society, they have never been exposed to modern medicine, treatment, or any type of medical advancement the outside world has seen. Coming into contact with someone from the outside world could mean mass devastation for this tribe. They have no built-up immunity to the diseases we are exposed to and have built up resistance towards, and have access to modern medicine to treat these diseases. Even if you just have the common cold, the pathogens you are carrying could transmit to anyone in this tribe, and they could spread it around to the rest of their tribe, and since none of them have built up immunity to a cold, a simple cold is far more fucking severe for these people, and could very likely kill them. Think of what happened to many indigenous people here in the United States, the exact same scenario. Is risking wiping out an entire tribe of people really worth getting some fucking clicks on YouTube? And what if you did come into contact with anyone part of this tribe and the encounter went very bad, to say the least? Would YouTube clicks have saved you in that situation? These are people who do not know what the fuck YouTube and the internet is. So do you think they'd really care about being in your stupid video or videos to entertain people online? I highly, highly doubt it. And think about it from their perspective. If they had seen you, who's to say you're not part of a larger group who means harm and maybe even trying to conquer their island? They don't fucking know, and that's why they are so defensive when outsiders step onto this island. Just let them live their fucking lives. They're not out there for outsider idiots to gawk at and be entertained by and to try and interact with. I hate content creator brains so fucking much. They think of everything and anything through the purview of what will make good content, what will garner the most amount of clicks. Was your attempt to garner clicks so worth it now that you're presumably in a prison in a foreign country? Ross Creations is a YouTube prankster. That alone should immediately give off a million red flags. His controversy actually just occurred at the very beginning of this month. Ross's latest epic funny prank was creating a possum launcher. And the contraption does exactly what the title suggests. It launches a possum into the air, very high up, and then the possum crashes onto the ground. There's no safety measures in place like a mat placed where the possum would land. Not that that would make this prank any less disgusting, but at least there would be some shred of decency displayed. But no, the specific intention of this prank is to kill animals. The justification behind this was, oh, possums are rodents, which they aren't. They're actually, instead, pretty effective rodent killers. They're usually not dangerous towards people either, so long as you don't intentionally try to piss them off. Every possum I have ever encountered has ran the fuck away from me, and that is the beginning and end of my relationship with possums. In fact, earlier this year, a possum nearly gave me a fucking heart attack when I was taking garbage to the curb, and when I grabbed the bin, a possum came exploding out from under the lid and ran away. I don't know how the fuck it was in there and the lid was still perfectly on top of the garbage can. It was a removable lid, but whatever. But even if possums were these dangerous pests, I derive zero pleasure out of watching them suffer the severe agony of being launched high up into the air and then smashing into the ground. Because it's a fucking animal, just minding its own business. And what the fuck is the punchline to this prank? Ha ha, let's watch the innocent animal writhe in agony after suffering severe internal injury. In the video this douchebag uploaded to Instagram showcasing this prank, you could tell he was disappointed that the possum didn't die upon impact. When the possum that was launched into the air got up and limped away, and the dude was like, oh, you just walked away perfectly fine. No, it fucking didn't. It was limping, in agony, and just because you don't see any bleeding or any noticeable injuries does not mean this animal didn't sustain serious internal injuries. Imagine if someone made a human catapult and put you in it and launched you into the air, and then you came crashing down onto the ground. And after you crash, there's no noticeable injuries, there's no bleeding, but you're still crawling in agony. And then whatever doofus who made that contraption goes like, oh, he's fine. Are you actually fine? No, not really. So the whole purpose of this prank is to watch animals die in agonizing death. So hilarious! Unsurprisingly, this guy is facing a lot of backlash because what normal, well-adjusted person would find humor in something so horrible and think of it as a prank? And we're really stretching the definition of prank when it comes to shit like this. This is just straight up animal cruelty and murder. But hey, I guess animal cruelty and murder is perfectly okay if it gets you internet clicks. Fuck this society. You know what? Let's build on that human catapult idea. I wish we could build a cannon that we could put all of these dumbass pranksters into. Aim it at the fucking sun and then launch them there. No value would be lost. There's a lot of people, actually, I wouldn't mind seeing go into a contraption like that, but the less I expand upon that, the better. Eric Conover is someone who actually had a pretty substantial platform here on this website, and the internet in general. He had a channel that amassed over 3 million subscribers. Well, not 3 million subscribers anymore, it fell below that after his downfall. I don't want to spoil what happened to him just yet. Over 1 million followers on TikTok, and roughly 1 million followers on Instagram. His content primarily focused on real estate, where he would walk around in and showcase huge mansions, penthouses, even private islands in certain instances. Basically, it was content that catered to people who desperately wished they were rich assholes. So how did this dude's empire come crumbling down? Well, let me begin with a little bit of irony. One of his last videos was him celebrating his sobriety. He self-proclaimed that at the time of recording the video, it had been 1,444 days since he touched a bottle of alcohol. Either that was a complete lie, or he fell off the wagon shortly after, because earlier this year he was pulled over by police for driving while intoxicated. He's arrested, but doesn't spend a whole lot of time in jail because he was able to get out on bond. He then went on Twitter to rant about his arrest, and even complained that the cops put the cuffs on too tight on him. New Hampshire police suffocated me in cuffs, stole my blood, crushed my rights, suing for 4th and 14th violations. They think I'll stay quiet. Help me fight. And here's a picture of his bruised wrist from the cuffs that were supposedly on too tight. Now, far be it for me to come to the defense of cops. They're largely power-hungry scumbags who wish to exert control in any given situation. I get that, but you were caught driving under the influence. You choosing to do that could have ended in a much worse way than you having cuffs put on you too tight. Aw, poor baby. Yeah, who gives a shit about you potentially critically injuring or even fucking killing people thanks to your own reckless actions? It's your poor bruised wrists that are the real tragedy. Fuck you. Well, the story doesn't end there. In fact, it escalates. About a week after this incident, Eric hops into his Jeep and speeds. He's going 60 miles an hour, where the speed limit is only 35. An officer catches him speeding and chases him for a bit, and then Eric pulls over. Him and the cop talk for a little bit. The cop tells him to get out of the vehicle, and Eric, I guess, is like, nah, and then speeds away again. The chase continues for another 8 miles. And then Eric pulls over again. The cop rushes to his Jeep, and then Eric throws his Jeep into reverse, rams into the cop, and sends him flying. The cop survives just with a leg injury, calls for backup, and now there are several police cars chasing after Eric. This chase continues for another 28 miles before police throw down spike strips on the road that puncture Eric's tires, and this is where the chase finally ends. He's arrested, and the craziness still continues. In an arraignment hearing that took place shortly after his arrest, he brags to the judge about his online following. I'm a popular YouTuber, I got millions of followers on YouTube and other social media platforms. Like, who gives a fucking shit? Your actions could have fucking killed someone, and in the case of the copy mode down, you seriously injured a person. Now, far be it for me to weep for a cop, but what you did constitutes as attempted murder, and that was one of the charges he was slapped with. Your stupid fucking YouTube fame is completely irrelevant in this situation. I hate these popular YouTubers with inflated fucking egos. Newsflash, your E-fame means absolutely nothing in real life. You are nowhere near A-list status, contrary to what you believe. Unless you're like Mr. Beast status, your E-fame does not automatically translate to being popular in real life as well. I'm not saying if he was some famous mainstream celebrity he should have gotten away with what he did. Absolutely not. I'm just saying a lot of these stupid E-celebrities massively overstate their influence and think their online fame makes them untouchable in real life. Well, hate to break it to ya, it doesn't. Eric even tries to make the case to the judge, oh no, this is some big misunderstanding. It was actually some other Eric who isn't popular online who did this, and not me. Yeah, you have an evil twin speeding around in New Hampshire, totally. Now, it's safe to assume at this point that Eric isn't the most stable individual. Well, don't you dare question his mental competence, because in his own words, if you do that, he will eviscerate you with his intelligence.
If anyone dares try to test my mental competence, I will eviscerate every single person with my intelligence right now. And that's not being egotistical.
I'm a big-brained popular YouTuber above the law. Don't you dare try to question my mental competence, otherwise I will eviscerate you with my intelligence. But I'm not egotistical. Eric was staring down the barrel of a maximum of 10 years in prison, but thanks to a guilty plea he was able to cop. He is only going to serve 4 years, much to the dismay of the cop he ran over. Hopefully he's reformed after his prison time, but honestly I wouldn't be surprised if this guy gets into even more trouble after his prison time, and we'll see if his ego is still off the charts because, oh, he was once a popular YouTuber, so spectacular. Who knows, maybe he'll make a grand return in another one of these lists 4+ years from now, if I'm even still doing these videos. Sheay was a pretty popular content creator within the Undertale community. Now, I have only ever played Undertale twice, the first time being in, I don't know, 2017, 2018, whenever it got ported to the Switch, and played it a second time just last year on my PS5. I liked it, though I don't get the huge hype surrounding the game personally. But as you could imagine from what I just said, I know next to nothing about the online Undertale community, nor did I ever hear about this person before their controversy. In November, a 200+ page Google Doc about Sheay dropped. I'm sure you know where this is going. The document contains allegations ranging from sexual harassment, sexual abuse, grooming fans, and even orbiting fans that are just barely under legal age. And then the moment Sheay knows they turned 18, that's when Sheay proceeds to be creepy with them. Obviously, I can't possibly go over every single allegation in this Google Doc in this short segment, but I'll try to go over some of the worst things. First, Sheay has a partner that is asexual. She does not wish to have sexual contact with anyone. She understood that Sheay wished to have their own sexual outlet, and so she permitted Sheay to sleep with other people so long as Sheay did this discreetly, in the sense that they didn't tell her who they were sleeping with and when it was occurring. However, despite this agreement and Sheay previously respecting their partner's asexuality, they crossed a major boundary. And just a little heads up before I read this snippet of the document, this does contain a pretty graphic description of sexual abuse. At the beginning of November 2025, Sheay and I were lounging on our bed in the main bedroom. We started cuddling, and suddenly they laid a hand on my crotch and started rubbing without asking. This has never happened before, and I froze. They did it for a minute or so before saying, "So you really don't feel anything, huh? That's crazy," before laughing and pulling away. I did not give consent for them to do this, which makes it sexual assault. I'm also asexual, and I feel disrespected in my identity that they felt they had to test whether I was asexual or not. Because of the agreement Sheay had with their partner, this prompted Sheay to try and coerce several collaborators and fans to have a sexual relationship with them, whether it remained online or they actually wanted to meet up and have sex. This made many people who did not wish to cross this boundary with Sheay very uncomfortable. Here's one testimony from an anonymous victim. "I have had a lot of consensual sexual interactions with Sheay over these past couple of years. I have also had changing circumstances that have led me to retracting consent or extending it again. However, they have constantly tried to check to see if my boundaries or circumstances have changed since the last time we talked at that moment. There were plenty of times where I had to kindly but firmly remind them that, for example, I was in a monogamous relationship and was unwilling to receive or reciprocate sexual messages at that time, and sometimes they would follow up some weeks or months later asking if this was still the case. I have watched how they use my close friends for sexual gratification and leave them to go fulfill whatever social needs they need met after their sexual desires were satisfied. They have shown time and time again that in their mind a friend is there to vent to hopefully get their rocks off to, and occasionally check in on, only if they have big fucking flashing lights saying this person is distressed. I sincerely hope therapy helps them. I hope they're processing instead of just hearing. I hope the cycle breaks with us. I hope for both the sake of all of their future friends and the friends who choose to tentatively stay with them now that they change. But how they treat the people they love is unacceptable." The victim then goes on to theorize that perhaps the challenge is the draw for Sheay, in the sense that they have established to Sheay that they have revoked their consent to having this type of relationship with them, and instead of respecting that, they want to test how far this victim's boundaries boundaries can potentially be pushed, in the hopes that the victim eventually gives in, because their consent is just a game to Sheay. This is totally how a normal friend treats another friend. There's also another account from a former associate of Sheay's, whose fiancé was sexually harassed by them. They DM'd this person's fiancé sexually charged messages under the pretext of, my partner is asexual and she says it's okay that I be sexual with other people, and they then try to coerce the fiancé into having e-sex with them. This associate only found out after their fiancé told them about this, and obviously this person was furious. It was only after Sheay was confronted that they apologized. So much fucking worth that apology had that they continue to engage in the same disgusting behavior. And here is an allegation from a fan who was only 17 when they first began interacting with Sheay, starting in late 2020 and early 2021. Sheay first DM'd me on December 27th, 2020. However, it wasn't until February 2021 that we actually began to be closer and talk regularly. Both of us would be in the general VC on Discord for clarification for hours a day. Outside of the public VCs, Sheay would often DM me out of the blue. These DMs ranged from random memes to ranting about stupid people on Twitter, but for some reason they often had something to do with sexual topics. Sheay's conversations that led into sexual topics often were sparked by something completely innocent, such as March 26th, they DM'd me about sussy hypnosis, and when I didn't understand what they were saying, they proceeded to explain the joke. I just make the assumption that everyone is a D-gen. I found out through a YouTube video that some people have a fetish for something called sissy hypnosis, and I think it's hilarious. Sussy, sissy, I don't know which it actually is, but it doesn't matter. Sheay has a disturbing history of creeping around 17-year-old fans because they were just salivating the moment these fans turn 18 so they can begin sending these fans more explicit messages. Here's another screenshot from a fan who was interacting with Sheay when they were only 17 years old, where Sheay is calling them cute and the fan claims that the closer they got to age 18, the more Sheay began calling them cute. I'm sure I painted a pretty clear image at this point. This person should not be trusted with a large platform. They view their friends, collaborators, fans, including fans that are under the age of 18, as pawns for their sexual gratification and nothing more. They likely viewed their platform at least partially as a vessel for obtaining this sexual gratification. Unfortunately for a lot of content creators, e-fame gets to their heads and they feel it gives them permission to act like this towards other people within their orbit and fan base. And that's why Sheay needs to stay the fuck off the internet for a long time, or preferably forever. Because how could you be trusted to run a YouTube channel with hundreds of thousands of subscribers after all of this has come out? And Sheay has confirmed that all of these allegations are true. They wrote a very lengthy post on Discord basically confirming all of these allegations before disappearing off the internet. And I say the internet is better off without your presence if this is how you're going to utilize your platform. And one more completely unrelated thing, but while we're kind of on the topic of Undertale, and I believe this is the first time I've ever mentioned anything related to Undertale on this channel in damn near 10 years. Yes, I know how to pronounce Sans. For some reason I pronounced that character's name as Sans in that Undertale fanbase video I made nearly 10 years ago, and like half of the comment section had a good laugh over that, but yes, I do know that the character's name is pronounced Sans, like Comic Sans. Sans, Sans, Sans. I don't know, I have a tendency to pronounce things weirdly sometimes. That is something I've been wanting to get off my chest for a long time now. Brad Taste in Music did music reviews, and his primary form of content was music streams where he'd react to albums, singles, and also bad music. I knew about this guy before all of the controversy he was embroiled in. I watched a handful of his videos, and he was never a content creator I subscribed to or kept up with, but every once in a while a video of his would pop up in my feed, and if it caught my attention, I'd watch it. Luckily, I never did feel compelled to subscribe to him and watch him regularly because, he's not a very good person. Brad has been a polarizing figure for a while now, getting himself into controversy spanning from platforming another content creator, defending rape and bestiality, to getting a former editor of his into debt. Already we're off to a swell start, but the worst of it has to be his treatment of his ex-fiancée. Last year, following a very heated argument with his ex, he was arrested for domestic abuse. I don't believe he was actually charged with anything, though. Not much was known about the situation initially. Brad's ex didn't make any public statement. Brad himself took a hiatus from his channel for a few months. But then, over the summer, Brad decided to reignite the situation by uploading a video titled SI, short for Suicidal Ideation. Already, from that title alone, he's trying to score as many sympathy points from his audience as possible. In the video, he frames the situation as partially having to do with financial reasons. He found her on the couch crying one night. I believe he wanted to stream, so he was telling her to cut it out. Then she complained about feeling invisible in the relationship because he prioritizes his YouTube channel far more than her. And then he complains about her causing him mental distress and tells her to get out of the house. He can't legally just throw her out of the house as her name along with his is on the lease. And in the video he complains that she contributed nothing financially. He was the one making all of the money, paying the bills. And so that is why he felt justified in telling her to get out of a house her name is attached to. Basically, he was trying to frame the whole situation involving him getting arrested as something that was mostly her fault, that she brought on and escalated. Her fiancé responded in the form of a Twitter thread, still not saying much. Besides that, she has moved on with her life. She wishes Brad would move on too. She's in a much better place mentally and surrounded by better people. Bear in mind, this whole situation happened a year before Brad made this video. She already broke it off with him. She's already out of his life, but he still cannot move on and can't help but badmouth her. She ends the thread with saying she's never going to talk about Brad publicly ever again. That chapter of her life is closed, and she even clarifies that he was never physically abusive towards her. Most people gleaned from this that Brad was the toxic one, and Brad then uploaded another video just called 2, where he backpedals on most of the claims he made in his initial video, says he's going to take a year-long hiatus from YouTube, and apologizes. If it ended there, he wouldn't have been on this list. Sure, the things he did was shitty, he has proven himself to be not a very good person and an untrustworthy person, but the first step to self-rehabilitation is acknowledging your wrongdoings and apologizing and moving on. But his year-long hiatus from YouTube lasts like a week before he uploads this 50-minute unhinged freestyle diss track on his ex. I mean, listen to some of this shit.
The same words, so if I have to clarify it too, that doesn't solve anything. Yeah, it doesn't mean anything. No, this is the features I bring them to the table. Do this off they dome, now they wouldn't be able. See, even when I be fucking up, that shit is still a fable, cause it even reaches all the people who disabled, cause you ain't nothing what I did. That don't make sense, but God, please forgive. Fuck a bad bitch.
He then uploads another video where he doubles down on a lot of what he said in his initial video, even though he had already retracted a lot of what he said in his initial video and apologized. This is when his ex decides she has had enough and releases audio she discreetly recorded of the argument they had the night he got arrested. I'm going to play it, and let me warn you in advance, it is not easy to listen to. Brad is extremely unhinged in this clip, and if you're sensitive to yelling and verbal abuse, I advise you to either mute the audio for a bit or skip a little ahead in this video if you're not watching it while it's premiering. Anyway, here it is.
One of my abusers, so I can damn fucking right do that to you. I can kick you the fuck out of here for what the fuck you've done to me. You've destroyed me.
What? How? All I've ever wanted to do is support.
Stop lying to me for once. Look at me in the eyes and stop lying to me. Stop being such a wimp.
All I've ever
Look at me and accept what you have done to me. Do you see what I've become? You've killed me. You promised me everything. You lied to me.
What did I promise?
Look at me in the fucking eyes and say that again. Look at me. Tell me. Tell me. Tell me what the fuck you just said. Tell me. Get out. You're done.
Don't.
You are evil. Like, you're evil.
I don't.
Outside of this audio being absolutely disgusting, he sounds like he's trying his best to do like a fucking villain monologue or some shit. Look at what you turned me into! Not surprisingly, this was the final nail in the coffin for Brad. The few YouTube associates he had left cut ties with him. His fan base left him in droves. He made one more video attempting to apologize, but obviously no one bought it. I wouldn't mind his YouTube hiatus being a permanent one. On top of all of this is also a man who clearly cannot handle the large platform he has. He's admitted before that large swaths of people not liking him and what he says is something that is deeply uncomfortable for him. I can sympathize with that to an extent because I also have kind of the same issue, though it only applies in real life. I really don't give a shit what people online think about me. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing YouTube, or at the very least, I most certainly would not be making the type of videos I make. Then again, my channel isn't anywhere near Brad's size. If I had a channel with over 300,000 subscribers, maybe how I would perceive my reception online would be different, I don't know. He's had mental health episodes on stream before. He's flip-flopped his opinions on things when he would get backlash for his opinion on a certain thing. And it's like at that point, sure you're making money, but if it's at the cost of your mental health, is the YouTube shit really worth it? Now that your online reputation is in the trash, there's really nothing to salvage at this point. I say just move on with your life. He said in one of his videos regarding this situation, he wishes he could find those magical words that he could say that could make this controversy blow over, but obviously those words do not exist when you have been proven without a shadow of a doubt to be an abusive piece of shit. And it's like, instead of fixating on that and leaving and returning to YouTube again only to be met with a hostile audience who does not want to see you around anymore, find solace in something else. Being a public figure has obviously exacerbated mental health issues you have already suffered with. Your mental health will likely be much better in the long run if you hung up your E-fame for good, but he's probably gonna come back eventually. Now we're getting to the really horrendous stuff. When I first heard this channel's name, coupled with what he did, my immediate thought was, oh, Minecraft YouTuber. You know, Mr. Crafty Pants, but no, he was actually an arts and crafts YouTuber. He also made do-it-yourself tutorial videos teaching you how to make custom shirts and cards and such, and he was known for his cheery, family-friendly persona online. So what did he do? Well, I'll just let an article take it away. Michael David Booth, which is his real name, why does his name have to be Michael, 39, was arrested Wednesday and charged with at least 20 counts of distributing matter portraying sexual performances by a minor, some depicting children under the age of 12. According to police, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children tipped officers about Booth's Kik account, which investigators said was used to share images depicting sexual acts involving minors between August 5th and August 7th. During a search of Booth's home, authorities said they found multiple files involving children under 12, as well as minors between the ages of 12 and 18. Files depicting children under 12 were reportedly shared at least 10 times, while others were sent at least 15 times. This is case number 2 fucking billion, showcasing exactly how you never know who the fuck you're watching. I took a glance at some reactions people in his audience had when this news broke, and a lot of it ranged from, he seemed like such a good, wholesome guy, to, I can't believe someone like him would be arrested for something so vile. He made these feel-good arts and crafts and DIY videos. Yeah, it's almost like it was just a persona he was wearing. Not everyone gives off immediate signals that they're a depraved shitbag behind the scenes, like for example, uploading YouTube videos, threatening to kill and assault children who banned you off a children's social media site, and then ending up getting arrested because you possessed child sexual abuse material. I wonder who that was a reference to, but a lot of these types of public figures are like this guy. They're jovial jovial and wholesome in front of the camera to not raise suspicion that they're a vile human being behind the scenes. And I think it's time to stop being surprised when figures like these are exposed for engaging in vile actions like this or anything similar. That doesn't mean you should automatically be like any wholesome, happy-go-lucky figure on the internet is a piece of shit behind the scenes. I'm just saying, don't assume you know a person just based off content they upload publicly online. They merely publish a version of themselves they want the public to see, whether that version of themselves is actually reflective of who they really are when the camera is off. Human beings are multifaceted. One minute they could be jovial and wholesome, and the next minute they could be doing absolutely reprehensible shit like what this dude did. I know, I've banged on this drum so many times in the past. Don't fall in love with content creators, don't form parasocial relationships, don't assume you know your favorite content creators. But it's just that I see this shit so many goddamn times every time someone who appears unassuming in front of a camera is exposed for actually being a disgusting human being. YouTube videos are not an accurate reflection of who a person really is. And we should stop idolizing content creators and feel like we know who they really are just because we like the videos they post. And frankly, I don't think anyone in this world should be idolized and looked up to, even if they are a good person. I don't know how much this guy was looked up to beforehand, but you get my point, and it's another point I've harped on endlessly, so I'll spare you. All in all, you never know who the person you're watching or speaking to is really like behind the scenes, and that's frankly really unnerving. And of course, this guy is a disgusting piece of shit who deserves to rot in prison, though that should really go without saying. Vinniebat 118's real name is Vincent Badaloro. He was 17 when what he did to earn him a spot on this list took place. He is 18 now and resides in New Jersey. He had a bit of an extensive history with another 17-year-old named Maria Neotis, I believe that's how you pronounce her last name. And by extended history, I mean he was stalking her. She even had a restraining order filed on him. According to an uncle of hers, the stalking spanned for months, which included him following her to her house and non-stop harassing her. Even during a gaming live stream he was doing on his YouTube channel, he calls Domino's, orders a pizza, and gives them her address. What I find so funny is live on his stream, he was like, oh wait, let me do this on my burner phone, let me turn on my VPN first so I don't get tracked. Dude, you know you're live on YouTube as you're doing this, right? How can one be this fucking stupid? This happened not long after Charlie Kirk's death, which, you know, obviously when that news broke, I was doing backflips, doing cartwheels in my house, cheering at the top of my lungs, the whole shebang. Definitely a true story. Satisfied now? Anyway, in all seriousness, why is that information relevant at all to this? Because that was his motive behind ordering this pizza, or at least what he says was the motive. He says something like, when Maria sees this pizza guy at her doorstep, she better think about what she said about Charlie Kirk, because allegedly Maria was making jokes about and making fun of Charlie Kirk's assassination, which, of course, I categorically condemn. I've never laughed at a single meme following that, no. Anyway, if the worst of it was he was stalking this girl, harassing her, and having pizzas delivered to her house, he would still be a bad person, of course. But he probably wouldn't be on this list, or at least he most definitely wouldn't be this high up on the list. Maybe at most he'd be a dishonorable mention. So what did he end up doing? In late September, Maria and her friend Isabella Salas, another 17-year-old, were riding on an e-bike. They were heading home after a school function, and Vincent was in his SUV following them. Vincent then proceeds to ram them down with his vehicle at 70 miles per hour, killing both of them. Initially, Vincent wasn't arrested because he tried to pass this down as an accident, and even tried to cover his ass in a live stream he did after killing these two girls, where his chat got raided and people were calling him a killer, and then he proceeded to offer his sincere, genuine, heartfelt condolences to both of these girls and their families. Yeah, he was obviously full of shit. And shortly after, authorities learned about his connection to Maria and were able to deduce that this wasn't just a random accident. And Vincent was then arrested and charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder. Hopefully, he'll end up being one less creep on the streets to worry about, and I hope your unhealthy obsession with this girl and your crusade crusade for some dead, dumbass propagandist was worth throwing your life away before you even became a legal adult. What a sack of shit. Oh, hey, look, another Eric in this list. I think that's a first for these videos. Two people with the same exact first name in the same list. Anyway, Eric Soulberg was a 56-year-old former Yahoo executive. Yes, Yahoo still exists, friendly reminder. He lived with his mother, Suzanne Adams, that's her in the picture right next to him, and he was also deeply unwell. He made YouTube videos that were primarily about spirituality, conspiracy theories, and AI. He even has a YouTube video, according to his Wikipedia page, titled The Truth About AI. Hashtag artificial intelligence is hashtag ancient, older than hashtag mankind, and I will prove it. And there's another video titled Eric Gratefully Gifted Supernatural Divine Powers Emerging. So, yeah, obviously something was not right. Eric had also deluded himself into thinking that his mother was a Chinese asset, a spy. Eric also allegedly used ChatGPT to fuel his delusions. The program agreed with this insane notion that his mother was a Chinese spy, and then it instructed him to test her. In one of the final conversations he had with ChatGPT, the program told him that him and his mother will reunite in the afterlife. I think you might know where this is going. Sometime before August 5th of 2025, Eric murdered his mother and then killed himself. On August 5th, authorities conducted a wellness check at their house, and that's when their bodies were discovered. And that's also when his ChatGPT conversations were discovered. All the more reason for me to fucking hate this technology. Okay, I know, if you believe your own mother is a Chinese employed spy, and that prompts you to murder her, obviously there is something deeply not right with you, with or without the assistance of AI. But still, you can't overlook the role this technology played in this case. There are already a million fears to be had when it comes to AI. Taking jobs, or in the case of generative AI, hyper-realistic images people could pass off as real, to make up false narratives or to weaponize against people using these chatbots as replacements for real friends and partners, further adding gasoline to the fire when it comes to this loneliness epidemic we're already in. People depend on this technology to think for them, to be creative for them, etc, etc, etc. You already know by this point, I am not a fan of AI. But now there's also this concern. People who are already deep in their psychosis, having their psychosis worsened even further by having these chatbots feed into their psychosis and tell them their delusions are actually real, they're not being paranoid. And horrible, horrible ramifications like this could possibly happen as a result of that. So yes, while AI didn't physically put the weapon into his hand that he used to kill his mother reportedly died of blunt force trauma, it still played a pivotal role in worsening his delusions that inspired him to commit this heinous act in the first place. But this is just the nature of the beast. This is the genie that's been let out of the bottle. Things like this and many different types of ramifications can occur in the name of solely prioritizing efficiency above all else, and corporations heavily pushing the public to rely on faulty chatbot assistants for various different types of needs. People are not just using shit like ChatGPT to do complex math for them. A lot of people are using this technology as their emotional outlet in place of real people, or as a means of enabling their unhealthy tendencies and thoughts. And as a consequence, society is collectively getting dumber, lazier, colder, more distant, and more mentally ill. And when you look at the full scope of how this technology has encompassed so many facets of our lives in such a short amount of time, and the consequences that has brought, and knowing full well that these consequences will only get worse as this technology continues to progress, you have to sit and think, were we really that much worse off without this technology? At least that's what I do. And yes, I do think we were better off without AI infesting damn near every fucking aspect of our lives. But yes, with or without AI in the equation, this man is still horrendous for what he did. And unlike what ChatGPT says, if there is indeed an afterlife, Something tells me he's not with his mom right now. But yeah, that's all I have to say for this portion. Anyway, here we go. Obviously, this was the 9th placement, so that just leaves one more placement in the main list. Number 10. Who committed something even worse than this, and what was it that they committed? Well, let's see, shall we? You might remember this person if you keep up with current events. Robin Westman was 23 years old and resided in Minnesota. In 2017, they graduated from a Catholic school called Annunciation School. Their mother had also worked at this school. Why is this information relevant? Because in August of this year, Robin had committed a mass shooting at this school. During a morning mass the students and staff were at, Robin had proceeded to fire more than a dozen shots from a rifle through the windows. Right before carrying out this atrocity, Robin had also barricaded 2 of the exits with lumber, making escape difficult. Ultimately, 30 people were injured, and 2 children unfortunately lost their lives. One child was 10 years old, and the other was only 8 years old. It's always abominable whenever innocent life of any stride is snuffed out senselessly. But children especially, it's just, again, fucking abominable. When authorities arrived at the scene, Robin had killed themselves via a self-inflicted gunshot wound. And to that I say, good fucking riddance, the trash took itself out. When it comes to an exact motive as to why Robin did this, that's still under investigation. But Robin did have a YouTube channel, hence why they're in this video, and posted videos right before the shooting expressing their suicidal ideation they had been struggling with. And they also lamented about being trans. Robin is not their birth name, and they were assigned male at birth. Unsurprisingly, a lot of bad faith people have used this as ammo to say, see, transgenderism is a social contagion, because this trans person shot up a school. Yeah, and how many cishet white guys have shot up schools? I don't think you want to go down that road. The truth is, Robin had a hodgepodge of issues. It wasn't them simply being trans that was the sole cause of what happened. Reportedly, Robin had an obsession with past mass shootings and slayings dating back to middle school. They fell down the rabbit hole of right-wing extremism. They've praised Hitler on social media. In one of their videos, they showed off the guns they ended up using in the shooting, and there were various scribblings on the guns themselves and the magazines that were anti-Semitic and racist phrases and slurs. There was even one scribble on the gun that said 6 million wasn't enough, a reference to the amount of Jews who died during the Holocaust. But there was one scribble on one of the guns that said, unalive Donald Trump. I usually hate saying that word, and that's not exactly what was said, but I just don't want to risk getting in trouble. You'd be surprised how many people on the far right actually don't like Donald Trump and think he doesn't go far enough. But take away the aspect of being trans, or I guess de-trans. I actually don't know what pronouns they preferred by the end, hence why I'm using they-them pronouns. This is yet another deeply unwell person who fell down the rabbit hole of political extremism and sought refuge in these circles that promote extremism and violence instead of receiving the mental health treatment they needed. And so their already existing mental health issues and worse tendencies are exacerbated and encouraged. And what a surprise! They end up committing a mass shooting. This is the origin story of so many mass shooters of these last, 15 years at this point, at least. So before you go on a tirade about big, bad, scary trans people, at least look at the other facts that contributed to this tragedy happening. Dare I say more so than them being trans? Who am I kidding? People don't care about facts anymore. Anyway, with all that said, congratulations, Robin. You're the worst YouTuber of 2025. At least according to me. You can claim your prize via me and any other upstanding civilian taking a dump on your grave, and I hope you're enjoying hell. And so that was the list. Some obvious perhaps, some not so obvious due to them being more obscure. The more obscure ones are usually the most fun because those are usually the most fucked up ones. That's not the fun part. The fun part being the stream chat collectively going like, what the fuck, in reaction to what these pics did. Anyway, I wasn't sure if I was going to include a dishonorable dishonorable mention for this year's video, but then I decided fuck it when some new drama emerged just earlier this month. The controversy isn't technically new per se, more like a rehash of controversy from a few years ago, now with more details added. But let's just cut the preamble. Let's see who the dishonorable mention is, shall we? James Charles, beauty YouTuber who does videos about makeup and shit. Yeah, obviously I'm not very well versed in his content. A few years ago in 2021, controversy exploded when James Charles was exposed for grooming underage boys. One of those boys was named Ethan, who was 14 when he first started interacting with James Charles. James Charles had commented on one of Ethan's TikToks, Ethan was starstruck, and so the typical dynamic between an insanely popular content creator and a young fan in these types of situations ensued. They had conversations a grown adult should not be having with a random 14-year-old online, let alone any minor. Like, for example, Ethan mentioned he was interested in getting into modeling, and James Charles was like, oh yeah, you'd be such a good model. Which I guess some people can construe as a simple compliment, but this was a grown man talking to a 14-year-old boy in DMs. There's also video of Ethan when he was 14 years old FaceTiming James Charles, clear as day, while he was shirtless and laying down in bed. Yeah, that totally doesn't add to the weirdness aspect at fucking all. Ethan has since re-emerged and has been recounting his inappropriate interactions with James Charles when he was still a minor. One of the things he brings up is James Charles asking for him to take a picture of him shirtless, showcasing his quote-unquote happy trail. That happy trail being the hair that typically grows at the bottom of a male's abdomen, inches away from their dick. He also sent at least one picture of his ass in the mirror and a video of him jerking it in the shower. This is someone who has proven they had contact with James Charles, so it's not just hearsay. There is already a laundry list of other people who were underage boys when they were having inappropriate conversations with James Charles. And every single fucking time, James Charles's excuse is, oh, I thought they were 18 years old. One, this is why no one should have these types of interactions with strangers online, especially when you don't exactly know how old they are, but even then, someone could easily fake their age. Second, if this was the only instance of you having this type of relationship with an underage boy, and the instant you found out they were under the age of 18, you immediately cut all contact with them, okay, benefit of the doubt. I would still call you out on how irresponsible it is to initiate this type of relationship with some stranger online you don't know the age of. But you're still granted a lot more leeway than you are with so many other people coming out and saying they've had these types of interactions with you when they were underage. And the sad thing is, James Charles's channel is still doing a-okay. I've peeked at some of his videos and the engagement they're receiving. He's still averaging about 1 million views per video. His like to dislike ratio is still healthy. If the extension that restores the dislike count is anything to go by, which I know it's not the most accurate, but if his videos were getting flooded with dislikes, the extension would still reflect that. But his fan base seemingly doesn't give a shit, which I guess shouldn't surprise me. If they didn't leave his side the first time he was exposed for having these types of interactions with minors, they're not going to leave his side now. Content creator worship and celebrity worship in general, it's a fucking poison. I know, I harp on that a lot, but shit like this happening over and over again continues to validate that point. Maybe James Charles deserved a spot in the actual list because this is really fucking disgusting. But I was already like halfway done with making this video by the time I heard about this, so dishonorable mention it is. And hey, like I said, I was leaning towards not having a dishonorable mention this year, so I guess you can say this came in clutch. And so that was the video. I don't really have too much to say here for the outro because I don't have any big parting words for the year 2025. It was just a nothing burger year, at least for me and in terms of my personal life. I know if you look at current events, this year has been pretty fucking bad. But in terms of my personal life, again, just kinda which I'll take over fucking awful like 2024 was. Ugh. So here's to a better 2026, I suppose. That's at least a step up above meh, hopefully. Oh God, I jinxed myself, didn't I? But maybe you had a good 2025, and if so, I'm happy for you. And hopefully you have an even better 2026. Hopefully I didn't jinx you either. And what are my big plans for this channel in 2026? I don't fucking know. Just keep doing what I'm doing, I suppose. Rant and rave, complain about shit. You know, like what I've been doing for 11 years, going on 12 years now. Holy fucking shit. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I absolutely would not be making these videos for as long as I have if I had no one watching these videos. And that's a good segue into me preemptively thanking everyone who participated in the premiere chat. I have fun every single time interacting with people who watch these videos as they premiere and reading their reactions. I have no doubt many what the fucks were written in the chat. So thank you again, and thank you to everyone in general watching this video, and frankly, thank you to everyone who has ever watched any video of mine. Even someone who only ever saw one video of mine and thought, ah, fuck this guy, he's an idiot. I'm thankful for that as well, what can I say? I like attention. But especially thank you to anyone in my audience who has stuck around for however long you have. I will never be able to fully articulate how much appreciation I have. Anyway, here's to hopefully a good and prosperous 2026 for this channel. That's all I have to say. Bye-bye.